Right. How about now? How about now? Press one in the chat if you can hear me. I think you should be able to hear me now. I think it should be good now. Check. Thank you very much. Thank you, Sir Facton. I can rely on you. Thank you, Vibe AMV. We got Vibe AMV in here. Got Sir Facton. Got to say massive shout out to Marcus Smith, the 1999 super chat. Straight from the US because it's got a $sign on it. Thank you, Nate Snan. I love that name. Hello, my wealth of knowledge friend, she says. Joe Bailey says 1. Thank you, Vibe AMV2 with 1. Okay, this is excelente. We have a guest I'm hoping will drop in tonight. But let me say this. I'm going to open up the floor tonight. So, but with a condition. And the condition is this. If there are any people of Rwandan background, African background, specifically Rwandan background, I will share with you the link. And let me do that right now. Let me post up the link. I don't know how this is done. Do I just share the link, guys? And because so that's what I'll do. If there's any people, I won't share the link yet. So if there's any people, if any person of Rwandan extraction in the chat tonight, watching, listening, whatever, I'll share the link with you. Just holler at me in the chat and I'll share the link. I'll post a link and you can join. Because what we're going to be doing tonight, we're going to be looking at the language links in Egypt, in ancient Egypt, to Rwanda, to the Great Lakes region of Africa, the Rwandan nation. Now, it's a landlocked region in Africa, and you wouldn't have thought it if you've imbibed, if you've taken on long enough this thing that they tell us about how Egypt is devoid from mainland Africa, Africa proper, then Rwanda is the last place you can imagine to find a connection with the ancient Egyptian language and culture. But we're gonna pull that up through all of that tonight. I'm gonna show you some amazing things. So yes, the thumbnail is a bit of clickbait, but I'm gonna show you why it's not clickbait in 1 second. I'm gonna start live with this, not so much technicality. When you see this, you'll understand what I'm talking about. Okay, right. Why have I got the image on screen that I've got right now? I'm just hoping my guest turns up at some point. But before he gets there, let's just start. Hey, hi, Carl Spears. Good to see you. That name rings a bell. Joe Bailey definitely rings a bell. Okay, Jed Kane. Hi, Eternal High Frequency. What's good? This is good. This is good. We got a good turnout already. All right. So this image that you guys can see on your screen was posted by some individual, I think on Instagram. And do you know what's funny about it? I think the person was using it to show the individual was using this image that you can see on your screen to show that, or to prove the caucasity of the ancient Egyptians. Let's just say that. But it's interesting because I thought, okay, that something about it looks odd. And I was watching not long ago, I was revisiting Alive by King's Monologue. If you've not heard of King's Monologue, I'm sure everyone here has heard of the King's Monologue. Go and check him out. Go and subscribe to him on YouTube. But he did a live a long time ago now, and it was basically on the the red color of the ancient Egyptian statues and that you see on the murals and the friezes. Now, one of the things he said, he was really posting some gems on that live. And one of the things he mentioned was how the trickery behind how they actually go over the statues. So, and he showed several busts. And what you find is with a lot of these busts, everything else is weathered on the busts. Everything else will be weathered on the statue, but everything else will be weathered on the statue, but the eyeliner, the sort of makeup around the eyes that the ancient Egyptians were wont to wear, and that will be in pristine, immaculate, very, very like vibrant black. But that didn't make any sense. If all the other parts of the statue are worn, why would, I mean, did the ancient Egyptian did they have some extra special knowledge as to how to make black last like and listen for millennia? Obviously that's not what happened. Under the guise of reconstructing or preserving these statues, what they tended to do was go over with extra paint. A lot of these the curating authorities, and particularly in Egypt today, they go over the eyeliner so that it presents this contrast. When you look at the image, it looks like they even go over the lips at times. He was showing this ivory alabaster Ushabti of Tutankhamun, I believe, and they even went over the lips of Tutankhamun. So what that presented against an alabaster, a white or ivory alabaster, whatever material it was white. What that presented was this illusion of whiteness, you know, of that these people were sort of Caucasian, certainly modern day Turkic extraction Egyptians that lived there. And so I had that at the back of my mind as I was looking at this image, and for some reason I decided to zoom in. And here's what happens when you zoom in. I promised you an answer, and here's the answer from the community post yesterday. What's odd about this image? I think everybody who commented could see it, and they were right. There were a couple of trolls who were trying to say something else, but you know, that's part of the course. But you can see, I hope you can also see where my cursor is, but you can see quite clearly that whoever's tried to polish this up for presentation in a museum has gone to some pains to lighten the top half of this image where you see the faces of the individuals, and then just left off the hands. Now I have a theory as to why that is. I think it's quite hard to get the fingers, the very deep, the fingers are quite, it's going to be hard to go over, to bleach off the darkness that you can see in the hand region, the fingers region. So I think they tend to just leave that alone. You can see it also with the harpist, the individual who's playing the harp here. His hands are markedly darker. Not markedly, I think they've done a better job on him, but his hands are slightly darker, and they've kind of left that off. But it's obvious manipulation with the image. We have numerous evidences of this. It's not just this. I mean, this is not the smoking gun by any stretch of the imagination. So anyway, that's what's particularly odd about this image. Right, I'm going to close that image up, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to move on to the main topic today, which is I'm still hoping my guest turns up for. Let me have a look. Okay, we might get him coming through in a minute. Okay, just bear with me whilst I wait for our guest. I need to do something. I'm not feeling like coming on the screen today, guys. So that's why you've got this placeholder on your screens. But what I might do is spice it up a little bit by putting my own thing up there. Should I do that? Should I not? Okie dokie. There we go. I think that'd be fine. Is that all right? Yeah, cool. Right, still waiting for the guest. Okay, let's go. I'm just gonna start off with this anyway whilst he's coming in. coming in hot. Live from the UK. Right, okay. So, why are we going to Rwanda today? Well, we're going to Rwanda because in Rwanda was found a group of people, a nation of people who are unique. And something that's unique about them is their hair. I'll show you what I mean by this in a minute. Okay. Okay, let me just. So if I Nate Stan says it's sick, it is sick. It's very sick. All right. Let me show you hair. Share the screen. Present. I think a few people can probably guess where we're going already. What you're looking at on the screen right now, if you can see it, press 1 in the chat if you can see this. What you're looking on the press 1 if you can see what's on the screen. What you're looking at on the screen right now is hair, okay? And what you're told is called a caprese. Thank you, Surfactant. So I take it everyone can see this. What it's typically known as, and I didn't know this till relatively recently, is that the crown, that this famous crown that you see on the pharaoh's head is called a caprese. We've gone over this before, but quite a few people have pointed out that there's no mystery behind this crown. There's no real mystery behind this crown. There's no real mystery as to. Oh shoot! Okay, sorry. Let me get the logo out of the way. Sorry. All right. Cool. My bad. You can see that now. Amateur hour here, guys. Sorry about that. Cool. I think you can see that right now. So what you're looking at on the screen right now is what you call a caprese, done by Tutankhamun. I think that's the pharaoh's representation that you can see there. But actually, what the crown purports to represent is hair. In many cases, it would have just been hair. We're coming to understand now through the works of many good people like Mr. Imhotep. Now, guys, in the chat, I have heard the rumors. And I don't want to jump the gun because Mr. Imhotep normally goes away. He goes away for a long period of time and then he comes with a banger. Is it confirmed that he's passed away? I just want to know, chat. And if you can prove that in any way, drop me a link in the chat and I'll explore it later. I think the you'll be able to play the chat back when this video is done, when this live is done. So I'll be checking that out, but I'm not sure and I don't want to jump the gun and say anything and then look foolish later. But I have heard the rumors that Mr. Imhotep is no longer with us in the land of the living. So anyway, let me know about that, guys. But Mr. Imhotep has done great work on this and he's proven beyond a shadow of a doubt that this was supposed to be a hairstyle. Now, why is this important? Well, you can see quite clearly on this caprese that if it's representing a hairstyle, it's representing the hair of an African. Tight circlets, ringleted hair. Okay. Let's move on. Here you see another representation of this caprese. I think now we're looking at something that's in gold or gold layered. And this caprese again has the same pattern. You see that it's quite elaborate, it's quite big, and again those circles are, once you see it you can't not see it. Okay, you're looking at what can only represent African hair. Okay, but you might still not be convinced, so we go on. This image I really have come to believe is a fake. I really come to believe it's a fake particularly because of the pristine nature it's found, and particularly because it doesn't follow the conventions that you tend to see. So Egyptian art is ancient Egyptian art was very, very convention heavy. It wasn't that they couldn't do uber realism like the Greeks later on would become and the Romans would become popular for and famous for. Okay, but they had an artistic convention, and they stuck to that artistic convention. And this doesn't fit the artistic conventions that you tend to see. So it just doesn't go. Okay. Let me go back to it on my screen here. I've shown you two already representations of Tutankhamun wearing this crown. And again, something's missing here, where you tend to see the depiction of African hair with the tight circles, the small ringlets and circles. You don't see it with this. And again, someone's backing me up there. Nate Stein's backing me up saying very pristine, very, very pristine. It just, I mean, we're talking stuff that's thousands and thousands of years old. Okay. It doesn't make any sense. Okay. You can almost see, if you look closely here, you can almost see where fresh paint has been applied to that head of hair, or as it would be. Okay. We'll leave that. Okay. Right. Let's go to the next image. Right. In what I've got now is a gold coin. This is a coin from the from actual surprise mainland Europe, and you'll get these coins particularly in the Hellenistic world. I think related to the cult of the oracle at Delphi, and sometimes in and around that area, sometimes far from there, but still in Europe. And we won't go into why there are these coins in the European continent. We're not going to get distracted tonight. We're just going to stay focused. What I want you to stay focused on is the circles in the man's hair. Okay, once again, you see an African being depicted. I don't think anybody would deny that this is an African. Even the worst trolls wouldn't deny that this is an African. I mean, shout out to the Olmecs. They do it with the Olmecs. But you just can't do it with this image in front of you. This is an African man. Okay, extraordinaire. You can see the convention with the circles. Now, this is a coin from the Hellenistic world, and they too have the convention of detailing the African with these balls on his head, you know, to denote how our hair typically is. Okay, next image. Again, we have another instance of this being done. You can see the hair there. I think you can see that. Let me know if you guys can still see this. Yeah, cool. No one can deny that's an African. I don't think anybody can deny that what you're looking at there is an African person. Okay, cool. No worries. Let's move on. We come to this image. Now, there's a funny story behind this. When I first saw these are from the Roman era. And the first time I saw this image was on this lady here. Now, there's an even better representation of this. But I can't remember the name of this hairstyle now, but they were quite famous in the Roman era, or popular. But the most a lot of these representations of people have some of the most obviously Negroid features that you will see anywhere. This isn't I don't care what you're saying to me, this is an African individual. I wouldn't say let's say black. This is a black individual here, right? Wow is right, Nate Snan. Wow is right. You're looking at an African individual here in Rome, but you don't get to see these images. Flavian, thank you. Craig. Oh, Thank you, Mr. Craig. It's from the Flavian to Trajan era, these hairstyles were popular. Now, I'm willing to bet if you go digging, this hairstyle did become popular amongst, let's call them Japhetic, Romans, European Romans. Just like it happens today, it's cross-cultural. What would be the word, osmosis or pollination? You know, you have, like I say this all the time, Black American culture is Black American culture. There's nothing. There's almost nothing. Let me say almost nothing original about American culture, modern American culture, that stands alone without devoid of Black influence. So yes, I have no doubt, at least in my mind, I've got no doubt that there will be some of these statues that you will see from this era, Flavian to Trajan, that do depict what we would call white Romans wearing this hairstyle and styling their hair in this manner. But the earliest iterations, the earliest, what was the word I'm looking for? The earliest incarnations of these statues that you will see are, okay, brilliant. Okay, let me just see if, we've got our guest here, and I just want to see if he's ready to, I won't forget where I've left off. Cool. And what I'll do is, oh, no problem. All right, so our guest is ready, and I'll add him to the conversation in a New York minute. Let me just finish what I was saying here. But some of the earliest representations of these are done by the people who are being depicted are clearly African. You can tell the nose, and this nose again is gone. I always say this, coming out of a video, I was at the British Museum again late last year, and some of what I realized, I need to share it with you guys. I had moments, and I recorded some of my, I kind of went around with the camera recording. So I'm gonna share that video with you at a later point, and some of the images from that again. But one thing I've said before, but it hit me even more, is that, and in case you've just like started to follow this channel, one of the things you find, one of these odd, really odd coincidences that you find, is that when you're dealing with these artworks, many of the statues that you find that have their noses knocked off, there's no way about it. You can tell this was an African nose that's been knocked off. And one thing about African noses, one thing about, let's say, the Negro nose, the Negroid or Negritic nose, is that, and the mouth and that area of our face, is that it's unmistakable. It's unmistakable. It's unmistakable in the way it presents. Our noses don't jut out. We don't tend to have as prominent a nose ridge. And I've often said that one of the excuses, one of the reasons, plausible reasons that they point out for why the nose is on a lot of these statues, one of the reasons they give is that they say, you know, it was a religious thing. Some people came along, they believed the soul resided in the nose, and by knocking off the nose, they were taking away or ensuring that the person would not have an easy afterlife, something like that. It's slightly less convoluted than that, but not much more. So not much less. It doesn't make any sense, because quite a lot of time, the statues that have their noses not knocked off are unmistakably Caucasian. So somebody in the ancient world, if we believe what they tell us, is deciding to knock off black-looking noses and chisel off black-looking lips, thick lips, and leaving Caucasoid-looking faces and features on. I don't know why they would do that. I don't know why they would decide that, you know, black-looking folk don't deserve a good afterlife, and white-looking folk, you know, sail on. You know, it doesn't make any sense. Anyway, you're looking at one person who I can say looks very African, and they've got their nose, his or her nose tampered with there. But this is an African hairstyle, and the Romans might have adopted it as a wider cultural practice later on. I've got no doubt about that. And you can see those tight ringlets depicted there. Okay. You see on this statue, we know yet again, I don't know if the Greeks had this practice as well. They say it with the Egyptians, but I don't know if the Greeks also knocked off the noses of these people. I'm gonna add the brother to the stage. You're now with us, brother Duatepra. And just hang on a minute whilst I introduce you to the audience. Okay. I don't know if the Greeks did this as well. I don't think they did that. I just finished his thought, brother. Sorry. Right. One of the reasons we know that his hair being depicted on the capreshes is that the Greeks did this as well. They did it with helmets, sometimes crowns. This is a Grecian or Phrygian, I think, helmet. And you can see that hair is depicted on this picture as part of the decoration of this individual's helmet. We go on, you can see this on, I think, a Persian or an Assyrian helmet. You can see the hair there. Okay. Okay, so that. Are you there, brother? Tuatepra?
Yeah. Yes, I am.
Brilliant. Is this the one you want me to use? Because there's two screens of you up right now, but I think I'll use this one because I don't think you want to be on camera, do you?
No, I don't.
Okay, that's fine. That's brilliant. Okay, right. We have with us the brother Duatepra, and some of you guys might know him. Okay, he's on Instagram, and his content that he produces on Instagram is gold dust. It focuses on linguistics, and it focuses on the links, the ancient Egyptian language and its links to inner Africa, wider Africa. And I started following Brother Duatepra on Instagram a few months back because his stuff kept popping up, and I thought it was actually invaluable. Some of the links he was drawing. I thought I'd have him on for this live to look specifically at the Rwanda, Uganda region of Africa and the links that the languages links, the linguistic links to Egypt from that region. So, brother Duatepra, you're welcome. If you can just introduce yourself and add a few more to what I've already just said there.
Hello, everyone. Yes, my name is Duatepra. Duatepra means the ancestral realm in the Rayonga language. That's the real name of the Kemetic language, but I haven't revealed that yet. So this is actually the first vocal interview where I'm revealing, based on my research, the name of the actual Egyptian language was called Rayonga. And what I do is I source African languages, Asian languages, Melanesian languages, and languages from other parts of the world to translate the ancient Egyptian language, which a lot of people don't do. Right? So that's if anybody who follows my page will notice, my translations don't sound like the typical so-called Egyptian words that many of you are used to, and I've gotten a lot of backlash from that, from the traditionalist, as I call them, because they've never heard a proper translation of the language, because the people who have been doing the translations are people who don't speak or study African languages and don't understand the rhythm of what an African language is supposed to sound like. So on my page, on Instagram and Facebook, and soon to be on YouTube, I study African languages. I start with there, and I study ancient languages such as Sumerian, Greek, Latin, Sanskrit, all of which were influenced by the Egyptian language. And I also study languages of places where Egypt and Egyptian artifacts are said to have been found, such as Australia, such as Peru, such as the Americas, rest of the Americas, and other parts of Europe. Right? I study the languages there where people claim the Egyptians came, but the Smithsonian doesn't want us to to know that the Egyptians went there. So I study languages from those regions. And as you said, it's been gold dust. It's been fascinating, the things that I've found, and I'm happy to share them with everyone here.
Oh, brilliant. Absolutely amazing. Thank you for that. So we might actually end up in a bit of a rabbit hole tonight. We might end up in all sorts of places that I didn't intend, because this was meant to be going to Rwanda, but I don't know. Those are those are juicy propositions that you set up for us that I don't know if I'll be able to resist following after there. So anyway, cool. That's amazing. I want to just finish off this train of thought I was making earlier. This is clearly hair. This is clearly hair. I've just removed you just for a second, Brother Dotepa, whilst you sort out your mic, and just message me and let me know if you want me to put you back on screen if you sorted out the position of your mic. You can. I think you can see on the side where to message me, where it says private chat. Okay, cool. So right. So, but where was I with this? Right. So cool. So I'm looking at this image and I'm telling you that this is hair that's been depicted on the pharaoh's crown, the Kepresh. Right. You see it again here because this is a an Assyrian helmet. You can see hair there. Longer, medium range in length, and silkier, smoother. Okay, straighter. Obviously, we can all agree to what we're seeing here, except when it comes to Africans. You can see that in this helmet. This is, I think, a medieval era helmet. Okay, I'll just add the brother back to stage. I think he's okay with the position of his camera, but you can see what's going on there. This is hair. Now, hair again, and again, you see the Africans' hair is depicted quite conventionally, even outside of Egypt, with these tight ringlets. Now, we should have been finished. We should have been done with this idea that, with this debate about the blackness of the ancient Egyptians. What you're looking at right now is a representation of, I think, something made out of lapis lazuli. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that properly. A blue sort of quartz, semi-precious stone. And here you have again the same hairstyle depicted. You can see the ringlets there. Okay, this is an African person, but this is from the Nakada culture. The Nakada were a pre-dynastic Egyptian culture, and a lot of the time they will admit that these were Africans. They will at least admit that there was a great African stratum, a great black substratum to the Nakada people. That's as far as they'll go. But they'll say that without showing you these artifacts. Quite a lot of their artifacts depict Africans with these tight ringleted hairstyles. So having established that, imagine the surprise of certain anthropologists when they turn up in Rwanda and they find people with hairstyles that I'm about to show you, who have long practiced these hairstyles that I'm about to show you. And 3, 2, 1. Sorry. 3, 2, 1. Let's go. These are the hairstyles. They're long out of fashion in Rwanda, but these are the hairstyles of some of the people of Rwanda, some of the nations in Rwanda. And again, this is what European anthropologists and studies of culture, African culture, found alive and well in Rwanda before just Western cultures eradicated all of this. Dressing of our hairstyles in these elaborate fashions and styles. And here is one particular one that I can't remember his name now, the photographer. If you remember I think I've mentioned him before. He actually attested to seeing this and seeing their wider culture and saying these people must be linked to the ancient Egyptians. This hairstyle that you're seeing here is, I believe, what was being depicted, or a variation of it on the Capresh that you can see. There's been numerous proofs of that. I mean, Mr. Imhotep, I think it is confirmed. I think people are saying in the chat that he is passed. So yeah, there you go, guys. And I do hope that we can carry on his work. Someone has said that in the chat, that we can carry on some of what he did, but I think he did quite a bit. So that's a great mantle to have to take on. So, but anyway, this is part of Mr. Imhotep's work. Musicology says, thank you for reminding us, Amasunzu hairstyles. Okay, and again, he's proving here, Mr. Imhotep, that these were hairstyles. You can see, and they couldn't be anything but Africans with this hairstyle depicted. Again, you see that adjacent to each other there. I believe that's a Ramses statue with the compression, and the Amasunzu hairstyle on the opposite side there. So that's without debate in my mind that that's what we're looking at. So when I put in a thumbnail that this was found in Rwanda, that's exactly what I'm talking about. You have a live representation of, like, sorry, not live, a living representation of these African peoples, and it should be signed, sealed, delivered. You know, you walk into a place that the earliest Egyptologists, I was reading, I think the earliest Egyptologists, most of them believed that Punt, properly speaking, where the Egyptians thought they were from, was in the Great Lakes region. Wallace Bodge believed that. Wallace Bodge was very racist in some of his writings, but he kept it a buck in a lot of his writings, and he said, look, these people they originate from this region. And what do we find in the same region? We find people wearing this hairstyle, brothers and sisters. I don't know if you want to add anything to that, Brother Duatepro, before we go into the linguistic side of things.
Well, yes. I'm forgetting his name now. Oh, yes. King's Monologue had a great video on the crowns of Kemet, depicting hairstyles sometime, I think, last year. And I was really impressed by it because it echoed a lot of the thoughts I had about, you know, some of the crowns actually being hairstyles. Some of the, you know, what they call the fake beard. You know, in some depictions on stele, you actually see that the beard that is so-called fake is actually connected to the hair, almost like a chin strap, modern day chin strap. Right. So that tells me that not every depiction of a beard was a so-called fake beard. I guess they most likely had, you know, a prop for, because not every man can grow a beard that long, you know, based on genetics. So in those days, they probably had a prop for the pharaohs and for the monarchs who could not grow a long beard. They just attached one to him. But for the ones who could, you know, especially in the older kingdoms, it was his actual beard that you saw. It was just trimmed and coiffed because this was royalty, so they always had to look prim and proper. So it was his long beard that was actually trimmed in the form of whatever they were trying to depict, right? And you know, when you look at 19th century photographs of tribes like the Mangbetu in Congo, their chiefs had long beards, right? But they're plaited, they're plaited, but they're very long, right? So things like this, and things like this hairstyle here from the Kinyarwanda people, yeah, it definitely would make sense to me that people with the hair texture that we have would not need to have a crown. Your hair is your crown. Right?
Precisely.
Right? And
Yeah.
that's actually a verse in the New Testament where I forget now because it's been a while since I've went to church or been in
You're
church.
talking about
But there's a verse
that's
in
in
the New Testament that talks about your hair being your crown, and that's talking about us, right? That our ancient people used to cut their hair, and their hair determined their rank. Whatever hairstyle you had, that determined your rank in society, from the king all the way down to the carpenter.
Yep. That was and we find that in the ancient Egyptian tradition as well, in the ancient Egyptian culture. Again, I think that has been alluded by others in this field. I think, but shout out again goes to King's Monologue. I think he alluded to that, but I think that's something that when you get into more esoteric circles, they know. Egyptologists know about that. They know that in ancient Egypt, in the Kemetic world, your hairstyle denoted your rank, your profession, all
Yep.
these little things. You were part of the priesthood and whatnot. And that is still the same thing when you go into wider Africa. It is still, till today, thousands of years later, that is still practiced all across Africa as a rule. Now, again, we're very, very, due to colonization, we're very, very removed from that in 2025, but you will still find it on the continent of Africa. Okay.
Right.
So, yeah, but I certainly back you up on that completely, 110%. What I would like us to go on to now is I'm going to share the screen again. In preparing for this live, I've come across an individual by the name of Stuart Addington St. David. Stuart Addington St. David has written a wonderful piece. Let me share the screen. And he wrote this about 6 years ago. There we go. Okay. He wrote this about 6 years ago, and it's called The Beloved of Amun-Ra. Beloved of Amun-Ra. Stuart Addington St. David has written this 100-page thesis, and he's a Harvard graduate of, I believe, ancient history or Egyptology. Beloved of Amun-Ra is the name of this piece. Lost Origins of the Ancient Names of the Kings of Rwanda by Stuart Addington St. David. Now, he's a Caucasian individual, and he started this piece of his with this quote from Sheikh Anta Diop. What is important for a given people is not the fact of being able to claim for itself a more or less grandiose historic past, but rather only of being inhabited by this feeling of continuity of historic consciousness. So, and that's a very interesting quote from Civilization Ubabari. And I think if I can extrapolate from that, what we're talking about there from that quote is the fact that we Africans are the only people on the earth that maintain that cultural continuity, that maintain within our very essence, our very stories, our very history, our very art, our very religions, various religions, that historicity, that link back to ancient Egypt. You can't find it anywhere else outside the continent. And that's the quote that starts off this thing. Now, I was very skeptical, guys. I was very, very skeptical because sadly, the man is not really, doesn't tend to be honest when it comes to our history. But I gave this paper a shot, and it completely fascinated me. What he's done is he's actually isolated some key titles, royal titles that the Rwandan peoples, the Tutsis and the Hutu nations, different titles for their kings and their chiefs that they maintained till very recently, I believe till today, but certainly till very recently, till the advent of colonization. And these titles are almost word for word Egyptian. they're just Egyptian. And there's no way that the conclusion he comes to, this Harvard graduate, this Harvard doctor, is that there's no way that this is a coincidental link. There's just no way. And he looks at other things as well. We're not going to be able to go into the whole paper today, but I want to segue on to you, Duarte Pra. Can you give us anything just off the top of your head that you know about the Rwandan civilization, the Rwandan culture and Rwandan peoples, or just that Great Lakes region that you know culturally or linguistically ties back to ancient Egypt?
Yeah, first I want to apologize because I actually misread your message on Instagram because
Okay.
for some reason when I read your message I thought you said you look for ties to Uganda. So I have a whole bunch of notes here from Uganda and not Rwanda.
No,
So
do you know what? Do you know what? I think I mentioned Uganda as well. Sorry, that's my
you
bad.
did.
No, it's my bad. I
Yeah,
did mention
but the good thing about the Bantu languages is that they're interconnected, right?
Right.
So they have a lot of similar words. So because I've done a lot of research into Bantu languages in general, including Kinyarwanda, right? I can still draw from a lot, especially from what I've posted on my page, which I'm scrolling through now to see all the Bantu connections I've made, which are several. One thing about the Bantu is that they have, if you've heard of Credo Mutua, which I'm sure you have,
No, say
correct?
that again. No, I haven't.
Credo Mutua. Have you heard of Credo Mutua, Vusama Zulu?
No, can you elaborate? Because I might it rings a vague bell. But yeah,
Okay.
just elaborate.
So Credo Mutua, his real name is Vusama Zulu Credo Mutua. He was a South African Isanusi, and Isanusi is like a secret society among the Bantu people. I only know about them being in South Africa, amongst the Zulu, Xhosa, and the tribes there. But
Okay.
again, the Bantu are interconnected. So the Isanusi have very ancient origins that predate modern history. But he is an Isanusi who passed away in 2020. And if you've ever listened to his work or read his work, he talks a lot about the origins of the Bantu people. And obviously, one of those origins is ancient Kemet. But he goes even further to connect them to the ancient Sumerians and the ancient Indians, as in the writings in Sanskrit, Hinduism. Credo Mutra really, really did, to me, an excellent job in connecting his Zulu traditions back to ancient cultures from the time before all Africans lived on the African continent. And that's a very important quote to remember, that we did not always live in Africa.
Wow.
Okay. So when you're showing coins from ancient Greece, which you were just doing, showing coins from ancient China, and you see, Negroid faces, that is because those are places where we used to live.
Wow.
Okay.
Yeah,
The
I'm listening.
Kinyarwanda, the Barawanda people, because they're a Bantu, they are a part of that tradition. We did not always live in ancient Africa, or modern Africa, I should say. And for the Bantu, Kemet was the New York, let's say, of the ancient world, right? And for a lot of tribes in those times, they weren't necessarily residents of Kemet, but they traded with Kemet, they fought against Kemet, they intermarried with Kemet, they exchanged philosophy, they exchanged science and magic, they exchanged building techniques, and did a lot of things with Kemet, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they come from Kemet. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, of course.
Right. So when I'm talking to people about, ancient history and our relation to Kemet, I make sure that, especially based on my research, that we differentiate between the tribes who directly came from Kemet and the tribes who Kemet was a pit stop on their way to where they are now. Right. And the Bantu people, based on my research, are one of those tribes because they predate, they're older than Kemet. They didn't begin in Kemet.
Yes.
And a lot of Bantu philosophers will agree with that. Right? Kemet, they influenced Kemet just as much as Kemet influenced them. The Bantu brought a lot into Kemet. And some tribes had their start there, and some tribes, like I said, they predate it. The Dinka is another tribe that predates Kemet. The Dinka were the people that Kemet drove out to build Kemet.
So you're saying the Dinka were driven out of Kemet?
The Dinka were one of the tribes that used to live in the region of where we now called Egypt. The Dinka and a few other tribes, but the Dinka were, in the Bible, they call them the, I wish I had my notes in front of me, but I'm using my phone. What is the Dinka went by another name. But yeah.
Maureen?
No, the Dinka, they went by, sorry, Anak. That's the name. My memory is, yeah. So in the Bible, when you read about the Anak people, the Anak are connected to the Amalekites and the Philistines, right? This is for people who know their Bibles, because I used to be a minister, so a lot of my research is very biblical.
Right.
So the Anak people were mortal enemies of both the Hebrew and the Egyptians.
They were the Anakim,
right? And from the Anak came the so-called Anakim, who are associated with giantism.
Right. Okay.
Or what would be considered giantism back in those days, where if you saw a guy who was 7'7" and you were 5'6", you would consider him a giant, right? So the Dinka, in the word Dinka, in the language of the Dinka, the word Anak means I kill. So An means I, Ak means kill. So Anak means I kill, because the Anak were a warlike people from that time. Right?
Yeah.
So yeah, so there's a lot more I can say, but I don't want to get out track. But it's just the larger point I wanted to express, before we get into the Bantu connections to Kemet, is that a lot of people need to remember that not every tribe had their start in Kemet. Some started in Kemet, and when Kemet fell, the different dynasties fell. Every time some dynasty fell, people migrated. They were driven out by the new kingdom, because that's what civil war is, right? And then other tribes, like I said, they traded, passed through Kemet, lived in Kemet for a while, and then moved on, because they're older than Kemet, and the Bantu are one of those tribes.
And on the screen right now, I'm just showing a few people what comes up when you Google Dinka, and they are amongst the tallest people on earth.
They have always been tall. So when you read about the Anak, when you read about the Amalekites and the Philistines, those are the Dinka, the Nuer, and the Aniwak people of Sudan.
Right, this brother's gonna throw us off. He's gonna throw us off.
That'll be another live, and I have tons of research to prove this. There's an article on Quora that I wrote about the Dinka connection to the Philistines. A lot of people don't know about it, but it's up there. So maybe in another live we can cover that. But there's a lot of tribes in the Bible that are still alive today, and some of them even have the same names.
Wow. Okay. Your work sounds like it would quite easily overlap with Dana Reynolds Marniche. She does a lot of work piecing together the link to lots of the tribes in the Old Testament mentioned in the Bible as well. So
Yeah.
You guys should, maybe we can even do like a three-way conversation at some point.
Oh,
This is
most definitely.
incredible.
I'd love to compare notes with people who do the same research. But as you mentioned from the onset when you were introducing me, it is, and this I wish many more people knew. It is very, very easy to find ourselves in ancient history when you know, one, ancient languages, and two, African languages when you study them. Right? Before
Yeah.
colonization, a lot of our languages were intact, right? As in, it's the same language that we spoke 1,000 years ago. After colonization, a lot of our languages started to shift. Okay, so whenever you see me doing linguistic, you know, callbacks to ancient traditions, a lot of the information I'm getting about those linguistics from whatever language I'm studying is from dictionaries before colonialism, like dictionaries of African languages from the 1800s.
Shout out to Fadas. First time I'm seeing that name. Shout out to seeing a lot of new names tonight. Thank you very much for joining us, folks. Okay, right. One of the things in this article by Stuart St. David is he says that he mentions in the introductory segments of this piece about the history of the Egyptians. One of the things he says is he goes through lots of different people who are instrumental in the history of Rwanda. And let me share that with you guys. I'll remove this from the screen and I'll present. So sorry, bear with me, guys. I'm still really coming to grips with this technology. All right, what am I looking for? Where are the guys I'm looking for? There we go. Nice and easy. All right. Let's present that to the audience. Now. Okay, you've gone, Duatepra. You might want to reconnect. Okay. He talks about this fellow that you can see on your screen, guys. Giovanni Battista Belzoni is an Italian naturalized Brit who went to Africa, found himself excavating a lot of the monuments. He was very key in the beginning of Egyptology. That's his general bio. We don't need that. Another person instrumental in popularizing Egypt to the European masses was Percy Bysshe Shelley, and he wrote the famous poem Ozymandias. And Ozymandias is one of my famous poems. It's about Ramses II. That's the statue at the British Museum, and yeah, that's the poem there. But one of the things that he mentions in his maybe Surfactant. Surfactant says this the dude that blew up the pyramids in Kush. Probably him. Yeah, I've not heard that one, but probably him. He was known for just doing a lot of damage, lots and lots of damage. A lot of the monuments were very well preserved till the Europeans came up. Well preserved by the signs of the signs of the deserts there in East Africa. But Europeans came along and blew up a lot of things. You know, go figure. But so you got. Why have I got catfish on screen? According to Stuart St. David, I need the brother to verify this, but that was what Narma actually, that's what the name Narma means. Is it Narma or sorry, let me go back to his thing. Let's look it up. Right, Narma, i.e. catfish. He says this. Okay, I'm just going to take us to the segment because I think it's interesting, and that will explain why I've got a catfish on the screen. I'm going to wait for Duatep to come back. Duatep, are you back? Okay, we'll wait. He says this. Learning more and more about the Egyptian kings and their names, I quickly discovered that the Greek writers, travelers, and historians had indeed gotten up to quite a bit of mischief with many of these names, rendering scores of them.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now. Thank you.
Okay.
Rendering scores of them in a way that was perhaps more conducive to easy pronunciation by fellow Hellenophones, but in many cases, I'm reading this segment, not especially close to the original. What is worse is that the initial meanings of the names, all of which were given for very specific reasons and under very particular circumstances, were entirely lost to future generations in these Greekified versions. Narmer, i.e. striking catfish, the great founder of the unified kingdom of Upper and Lower Egypt. And we take a look at what Narmer is supposed to have looked like. Where's that? It doesn't look like a catfish, but that's what the Greekified version says. This is what Flinders Petrie found and ascribed to be a depiction of Narmer. Again, this is why when they first were excavating Egypt en masse, the English, the French kept saying these are African people. You can't not look at these people on the African continent and not think, oh, okay, brothers were black, you know, you just can't. That's a stupid depiction of what he's supposed to have looked like that we have today, but looks nothing like the man that you're seeing on your screen there. But what Stuart St. David was saying is that with a lot of the names of the ancient Egyptian, they've been Hellenized. They've been changed completely. I'll go back to the screen. He says, Narmer became Menes or Menes. Khufu, protected by Khnum, became Cheops or Cheops or however you'd say that. Now I've got a note on the in my a note on this, and the note I made to myself was, this isn't by accident. It's not by accident that you will get foreigners come in and take indigenous names and completely change them to, it's not just something you do to make easy pronunciation. Do you follow me, Duatepra? Do you see
Yeah,
this
definitely.
pattern with the ancient Egyptian language?
Yeah, we've we've had a lot of as I call them, bastardizations of our king's languages. You know, again, as I mentioned earlier, from people who don't speak African languages, and because they don't speak African languages or even study African languages as in depth as they should, then they have no idea how to pronounce these names of these kings. So we have ridiculous names like Joser, you know, for a king, and Cheops, stuff like that I always giggle at, because there is not one African tribe that descended from Kemet that has any name like that in their language. Not one. And I study hundreds of languages from Africa, and I can tell you, right? Most of these pharaoh names that we quote, they don't exist. They never existed, because languages travel. Languages don't just die and disappear and then nobody knows these words again. When a language is spoken, it is spoken by a lot of people at one point in its history, and if they have neighboring tribes, those neighboring tribes will pick up words from these languages that were spoken. So any language that so-called dies is still going to exist in some form or another in a descendant tribe or a neighboring tribe, if you get what I'm saying. Right? So yeah, so we have, I would dare say, the vast majority of the pharaonic names that we quote are completely butchered, and they didn't exist. Right? Yeah. Now with Narmer is it is one of the closer ones to the actual way to say his name, and the best explanation I've heard in terms of like a linguistic descendant for his name was found in the Amharic language of Ethiopia, where they pronounce it Naramera. So Naramera, so Naramera is how they say their language, and I forget the meaning. I would have to click out of here and go into my notes to get the meaning, but I do remember how they pronounce it is Naramera, right? And that sounds much more African to me than Narmer, because that's a white man's way of saying an African name. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I get exactly what you're saying. I get exactly what you're saying. And I've noticed that. I mean, Khufu being my all-time greatest example, guys. Khufu, when I first heard Khufu and I saw the little statuette of Khufu, the famous excavated statuette of Khufu, the only one that we are almost certain was meant to be him, meant to represent him. And I saw the name Khufu attached to that statue. I'm thinking, you don't get more African than that. That name itself.
Don't. Exactly.
I think Ghanaians, that's a very strong Ghanaian sounding name. Kofi.
Right.
You can get Kofi from like Khufu. You don't get that kind of name elsewhere. It just doesn't. No. You can tell by the ring of it that this is an African name, and by extension, these were an African people. Yeah, sorry, carry on. I don't know if you want to add anything to that, but that I'm just saying that to back up what you've just said.
No, you're absolutely right. Yeah, Khufu is again one of the ones that white people basically got right. And you're right, it sounds like an African name, but like I said, when you give examples like Cheops and Djoser, that's where they start to really deviate into the realm of fantasy in terms of what these the names of these pharaohs actually were.
So we have this segment of this paper. Let me present it for us on screen. I'll present the paper again on screen. Okay. He says this. He says that he basically talks about the name Caesar, and he talks about how you can find that various versions of that name across Europe, as you would expect to find. He says, among many fascinating elements in the comparative study of history and culture, particularly in the realm of official titulary, is that of the cross-cultural transference of certain key terms commonly used to describe a monarch or ruler. This latter phenomenon can be witnessed, for example, in the rapid adoption of the original Latin cognomen Caesar. I go to the second highlighted section that you can see on the screen. A transference that led to the eventual use of the directly related title of Kaiser for paramount German monarchs, or Tsar for their Russian and Bulgarian counterparts. So again, he's about to go into this from a perspective of, look, guys, I'm looking at the titles that the Rwandan people had for their kings, okay? And if you look at Europe, what I'm going to show you stands, is evident. You can look at the European peoples and you can look at their culture is interconnected, and you can look at something like their titles for kings. I never actually thought about it, but Tsar is just a Russian manifestation of the same thing, Caesar, which would have been pronounced more like the Germans pronounced it, because that C sound actually is more in Latin, is the k sound. So a lot of time when you see C in Latin, it's k sound. It's just because English is a weird language. It's got two symbols, two ideograms for the sound K, C, which is odd, and K. So really it's Kaiser. Okay, I think people get what I'm saying there. Thank you, Carl Spears. Carl Spears totally gets that. And he says you should see the same thing in Africa. And he's seen it most in the Rwandan people. He says he found 5, really 4, but 5, you can extend it to be 5 titles, royal titles, that the people of Rwanda, the nations in what is today known as Rwanda, used for their kings, and they're cyclical. They title their kings in a cyclical manner. Without going into detail and reading this whole 100-page article for us. And he says this, let me just read this. He says, by demonstrating a preponderant occurrence of marked phonetic similarities between certain of the 5 royal names of several New Kingdom and late dynastic pharaohs, and each of the cycle of the 5 regnal names of the Rwandan paramount rulers. These are the names Yuhi, Mutara, Kigeri, Kierima, and Mibambwe. As established during the reign of Mutara Semugeshi, I will outline the probability of significant cultural linguistic links having existed between the 2 African cultures. This is a white individual speaking. I highlight that because, look, guys, in the same way as they like to, I don't want to use anything that will get this video kind of flagged by the algorithm. In the same way they've got these Negroes, the like of, let's say, Thomas Sowell, Negroes, I said, in the same way that they will highlight some of these guys and say, look, here's one of your guys saying this. We have to be able to do this and say to Western academia, look, here is, you can't call one of your own an Afrocentrist. This is a Harvard-educated academic speaking on this and saying there are links between the Rwandan people and the Egyptian people, and he's tied it to the title for their kings. I'm going to skip ahead quickly, and I'm going to go. He even has a section on genetics here, the genetic markers and wider Africans. And I'm going to go down to, let's have a look, blah, blah, blah. Okay. These are the names he's picked out. Mutara, and the mutation is Sarah. Sarah meaning son of Ra. Kigeri. Now, you've got to bear in mind as I'm reading this to you, what are the chances that the Rwandan people have royal names, specific names that they give their kings in cycle, in season? So they don't have George II or Peter the First. No, they don't have that. They have titles that they give their kings, the appellations that follow their names, in order. Okay, and it's to do with the religion and the practices, but these are their titles. What are the chances? Ask yourself now, what are the chances that you've got these titles that correspond almost exactly in phonetic sound with ancient Egyptian royal titles? Mutara, Sarah, son of Ra. Kigeri, mutation, he says Kigeri, and that would be in the ancient Egyptian Kepere, manifestation of Ra. This is a common title for the kings of Egypt. Mibambwe or Miriambre, Meriamun-Re, beloved of Amun-Ra or Amun-Re. Yuhi, mutation from Yuhi. That goes back to the ancient Egyptian name or title for the king, Jeuti, the divine Thoth. And then you have Kirima or Kirima. And then you've got the ancient Egyptian title, royal title, Irima, one who has accomplished Mahat or justice or established justice. Right. You've been listening very, very patiently there in the background, Duatepra. Anything you want to add to this? I sent you a message about as to whether you were familiar with these. And again, my bad that you were looking into Uganda when you were preparing your notes for this. But does this strike any chord with you? Do you remember this at all?
No, yeah, well, as I said, I on first glance, I didn't recognize any of these names because I hadn't done an in-depth look into the specifically Rwandan connection to Kemet. But looking at some of this, what's this author's name?
Stuart Addington St. David, one of those long-barreled names. At St. David, Addington St. David. That's an Addington with a double D, and INGTON, and then St. David.
And this is a white man, you said?
Yeah, he's an American dude.
Okay, because his the connections he's trying to make here with what Eurocentrics have translated as titles in the Kemetic language. I see what he's trying to do, but unfortunately,
Yeah.
I don't see a lot of the connections he's trying to make. And the reason why is, as I said earlier, when I translate the Kemetic language, I don't try to find African words in the Eurocentric translations of the language. What I do is I study the African language first, and then I study the symbols, the Medu, the symbols of the Kemetic language, and then I find Africa in the symbols. Right? So
Right.
So because this is, and by the way, I switched phones, so I'm on my extra phone, my main phone that my notes are on. I'm completely free now, so I have access to my notes. Thank the ancestors. So I have my Kinyarwanda dictionary open right now. And Mutara, the word mu in the Kinyarwanda language means in or into, out of or from. Okay? So that's the mu in Mutara. The Tara part means a region. Okay? Let me just get to, here we go. So Urutara means a bed like they used to have that had poles and ropes. That's what Urutara means in Kinyarwanda. Itara means lamp and lantern. So this is a light source, Itara. Okay? And notice the ra at the end of that word. Okay? So Itara in Kinyarwanda means a lamp or a lantern. And then Intara means region or area. So Mutara, right? Inside the lamp or inside the lantern, inside the light source, or from a light source. From a light source. That's what Mutara means in Kinyarwanda. So now if we're going to try to find Rwanda into Kemet, you would have to find out what does Mutara mean in the Kemetic language, not Sara, because the word the title in the Rwanda language doesn't say Sara. It says Tara. That's a very specific answer, right? So if you're gonna find Mutara in the Kemetic language, you cannot look for Sara and look for this and look for that. Look for what does Mutara mean in Kemetic, right? From my studies, Mu means water. Ta means land. Ra means sun, right? Land of water and sun. A sunny land with water. Very rough translation, okay? And this is not from me doing any deep dive. This is just from my memory, okay?
And from the Kenyan Rwandan, you just said from the land, from a certain region.
Yes, exactly. Thank you for catching that. So Intara, the ta in that Intara, which means region or area in Kinyarwanda, the ta means land in Kemetic. Okay?
Wow.
So from the land, if we're going to use that one, from the land. Mu Intara, from the region or inside the region. But in the Kemetic language, it means region of sun and water. That's what it would mean. So that's just one example of how, if I'm going to do what this guy's doing, I wouldn't be trying to superimpose Kemetic titles onto the Kinyarwanda language. I would study the Kinyarwanda language. I would study the Kinyarwanda language and then find if that word existed in Kemet, it will be in the Kemetic dictionary. The symbols will be there. It's up to you to find out. Does this word, what Kemetic word did this word in Kinyarwanda descend from? Where did it come from? That's how I do my translations.
All right, I'm gonna put right, there's a link right there. So if you want to just join us, Wildflower, that'd be cool. So just hit up that link if you, and I'll allow you come in. But because we got one of our listeners right now is from the Ugandan Rwandan area of Africa. She's talking, she's contributing in the chat, and she's saying as you're speaking that Tara word also means light.
Yes, lamp, lantern.
Well, that would make sense because I think wait. Wasn't Ra, if I'm correct? Okay. Ra was the Egyptian god of
the sun.
Of sun and light.
Yes.
So, wow. Okay. So, okay. I'm gonna add
specifically because Kemet had a lot of gods that were also gods of light, but Ra is the main god for the sun. Yeah.
Wow. Absolute wow. So, you're on with us, Wildflower, and yeah, you can quickly just introduce yourself, just say hello, and you can just chime in onto what we just discovered right now, thanks to you, in part. Go ahead, Wildflower.
All right. So
I think he has a bad connection.
You're a bit muffled.
Yeah, I think he has a bad connection.
Oh, okay. Right. So what you can do, Wildflower, what you can do for me is, what you can do for me is, just, let me know when you got rid of the background noise, and just where it says private chat, just yeah, send me a message. Let me know when you've sorted that out. But if that's correct, I mean, that would be you've got the okay. So let's recap. We got the Egyptian god of light, and specifically the sun, light and warmth. I don't like using AI, but that's what comes up. As you type Ra Egyptian god into Google, that's what comes up. Egyptian god of sun, light, warmth. Wildflower was telling us that in her dialect, that Tara means light. Okay, and you've got this name you were correcting me about, and saying that, look, this is this as well intentioned and as assiduous as he has been, this Harvard professor is going about it the wrong way. Mutara, he's trying to just, at best, he's looking at it from a very superficial level, as you would expect from someone without a deep connection, with deep roots to the African linguistosphere, let's call it. And he's going with Mutara. Okay, I see your connection, Sarah. But you're saying you can be even more specific than that. And that if you were to be more specific than that, you would find that this Mutara you can actually find in the Egyptian lexicon, and find again, recap for us what that actually means, that Mutara, if you were to look for it in the Egyptian language.
Yeah, mu is a general word for water or liquid. Ta can either mean place or region, but it could also mean, depending on the symbol that's used, it can also mean land, country, well, not country, because there's a longer word for country, but land, ground, soil, you know, that's what ta can mean, depending on the symbol used. And then Ra obviously means sun. Okay. So land of water and sun is the general, you know, meaning of the word Mutara in the
Okay, right.
Kemetic language, right?
Okay, so let's move on. Let's say we look at the next word. So this was a title supposedly, or is a title for one for the kings in Rwanda, this Mutara. Okay, we're talking about now, we're looking at Kigeri. Okay, he says Kigeri is a mutation Kegere and is linked to the word Kepere, manifestation of Ra or Re. What do you have to say about that? Is that familiar to you in your Rwandan Kenyan dictionary?
Yeah, so I looked up Gera, because it's a Bantu language. So there's Kugera here. The Ku part of Kugera is a prefix. Okay, so Gera means to arrive, to measure, to weigh, or to reach a certain point of time. That's what Gera or Geri would mean in the Rwanda language. To arrive, to measure or weigh, or to reach a certain point in time. Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
The key part of it, I believe, again, that's a prefix. So I'm gonna just check to make sure it is. Well, yes. So there's, it's actually not a prefix. There's an actual word that has the key in it, and ubuki. The ubu is a prefix. So ubuki, or just ki, means honey. It means honey in the Kinyarwanda language. Okay. So if you think of the titles of the pharaohs, right? Remember that in some of those titles, there was a B.
Right.
Do you remember the titles that have the B in it?
No.
Don't remember them. Okay. So they
Oh, sorry. The ones I sent you earlier today.
No, I mean there's an Egyptian title or a Kemetic title where the Medu symbols in that title, they have a B in the title. They have a B in the symbolism, right?
No, I didn't
It's
remember that. No.
yeah, I'll have to if you Google right now, this is what the Eurocentrics call it, Nesut Biti or Insut Biti. Google the hieroglyphs for Insut Biti, you'll see what I mean. You will see the B.
All right, Wildflower, you're on. If you're actually on. Right, so I'm gonna unmute you. Sorry, I think you need to. Yeah, you need to unmute your mic. Just a
Can I
little
finish my
low.
point real quick?
Yeah, go on. Sorry. So of course. So I thought you did finish. Sorry.
Yeah, no, I was just saying if you could, you
Yeah.
can Google Incubity. But my point that I was gonna finish is that because Gera means to arrive or to reach a certain point in time, and Ki means honey, both in the Rwanda language, Ki Gera or Ki Geri would mean the honey has arrived. The honey has been measured, or the honey has reached. That's what Ki Geri means.
Okay.
So if you Google Insutbiti or Nesutbiti, as the Eurocentrics have translated these hieroglyphs to say, you will see the B in the symbolism in the Medu of this kingly title. So this ties into the honey that is mentioned in Kigeri. The honey has arrived. So there's a connection there. But again, I'm not going to try to superimpose Keper or Kepere into Kigeri. I'm going to try to find Kigeri in the Kemetic language.
Nesut Beti, he who belongs to the sedge and the bee, king of Upper and Lower Egypt. Let me share that with you guys because
Right.
it checks out what you're saying. Go back to this.
Yeah, so all I want people to see is the symbol of the bee and
And I
how it
want them to
connects
see that you're not just
to this
making this
Rwandan
stuff up.
language.
This is for the trolls that will come later on. We shouldn't do anything with trolls in mind, but just think, just for the fun of it, for them. Right, let's go to what am I doing there quickly? Right, there we go. So I googled Nesut Piti, as you said, and this is a royal title that the Egyptians had in their anthology of titles for their pharaohs. Nesut Beti, you can see here on the screen, he who belongs, and I highlight it, to the sedge and the bee, king of Lower Egypt, is one of the 5 royal names of the king. So if this individual was going to really do this properly, he would find the meaning of these names, right? Which is what you're doing.
Yes.
And right. But what he's done is he's just trying to find, which kind of works to an extent in what he's doing. He's tried to find just the phonetic similarities, right? But here,
Yes.
if he was to go into this, I think if he had any appreciation for the language as a native speaker, something that you are trying to do and that you have, then you would understand that actually this goes deeper than just finding phonetic similarities. That word, so as you're saying there, Kigeri has the notion of a bee, or he who brings honey, or he who brings sweetness, right? And what do we
That's right.
find is one of the, like you were saying, the regnal or royal titles for the pharaohs. I wasn't going to do it because I thought it was just a side point. I didn't catch what you were saying for some reason, because I think because I'm trying to get Wildflower on, but I did it and I found this. He who belongs to the sedge and the bee, king of Upper and Lower Egypt, one of the 5 royal names of Egypt. His hair is called Wikipedia prenomen comes up. I'll click on this, and this is the hieroglyphic representation that comes up. King of Upper Egypt and Upper and Lower Egypt. This is amazing. This is actually amazing. I can't believe what I'm seeing. This goes deeper than what I was expecting.
There's the bee. There's the bee. There's the honey.
Okay.
There's the honey.
Okay, so I'm gonna stop the screen again and share the article back. I don't even know why I'm sharing this article now. Well, we'll use the article as an anchor point. Okay.
Well, yeah, we're using it as an exercise to show you that do not try to translate Eurocentric translated words into African languages. What you do, study the African languages, what they mean, and find them in the Medu. That's what you do.
Wow.
This is how you find the real connections when you actually take the time to find Africa in Kemet and not the other way around, because the people who have explained Kemet to us do not speak our languages.
Wow.
They don't.
I'm looking at this. Okay, so for some reason, Wildflower can't join. Wildflower, you need to click the mute symbol on your side. So on your screen, you can see there's a microphone and it should have a cancellation mark across it. Just click that and it will unmute the mic, because she's telling me, or he or she's telling me in the background here, that Mubisi is honey in Uganda, and honey from the bee is called Mubisi. So that checks out. So just hit unmute mic and you can contribute here, Wildflower. Wow. This is amazing. Okay. So let's move on to
Can I say something? Can I say something? Yeah.
Oh wow,
Yeah.
yes, we got you. So is this Wildflower we're speaking to?
Oh, okay. It's not Wildflower. It's another person on this channel. Or it's only Wildflower should talk now. Should I wait?
Yeah, well, because I thought I shared the link specifically for Wildflower, but yeah, go on. So who's this we're talking to then?
I'm just a random person. I'm Kedu. I've just joined the chat because I wanted to say something that you already made a correction on, to not use European diction whenever you're trying to understand African languages. That was
Yeah.
why I got understood. I was watching from the background, but I just decided I can't say it because if you look at the European, if you use European diction, you'll lead you astray because most of these things, these people, they don't want us to know the truth. That was what I kind of came to say. But thank you for making that correction. And lastly, just to say the last thing before I leave, the Nilotic people that are in Africa. If you look at these Nilotic people, starting from the it starts from upper for it start from Egypt, from the Nile Delta, coming as far as Mozambique and Southern Africa. All those people you see there, they have a lot of relatives. Most of the ancient Egyptian statues you see there, those people they have a lot of histories to do with ancient Egypt. Those people are the that if you want to know about ancient Egypt or Kush, for the eastern side, you can go and study their language. But all over Africa, all over Black Africa, we all have connection. But many of those people, yeah, they try to study their languages. So I just pause it. I will just pause it and leave.
Oh wow, brother! Thank you so much for that. Thank you so much. That's very, very, very interesting. Addition
Thank you,
to
brother.
what we're talking about here, man. Thank you so much.
All right.
All right, so I'm still hoping that Wildflower can find a way to connect with us. So I'm just gonna remove you now, Kedjo. Yeah, cool. Wildflower again. I'm gonna post the link up again and see if you can make it, because it would be really good if you could join us in here. Right. So we have. Oh, Wildflower's here. Brilliant. Wildflower, the stage is yours. You have to hit unmute as well.
Can you hear me now?
Yes,
Yes, we can.
yes, we can.
Yes, we can.
Brilliant.
Finally. Finally. Right.
Okay, so
Yeah,
welcome.
I'm really interested in the name Mutara because I know the gentleman just talked about it and he was actually correct. The Tara bit means lamp. That's what we say for lamp or lantern. So Tara itself is, yeah, that was really quite interesting. And I'm surprised. It doesn't really translate son of Ra. It would be Mutara because the lantern that you hold is what we call Tara.
Right.
Can you hear me?
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
yes.
And the honey, that was very interesting because I'm like, when it comes to honey, we call it Mubisi, and the M and the N are actually interchangeable in Bantu languages. So that's very,
Have you heard of the
yeah.
word ubuki in Kinyarwanda?
What's the word? Sorry, I didn't hear you.
Ubuki, because in my Kinyarwanda dictionary it says it means honey in Kinyarwanda. Are you familiar with that word?
What's was that?
U-
Because sometimes
Ubu.
the letters can move around a little bit.
Okay, yeah,
Mu,
ubuki.
yeah. Mubuki. Did you say
U
mubuki?
bu ki.
Ubuki.
Ubuki.
Oh, okay. No, but it would sound similar if I was hearing mubisi. Yeah.
Right.
I see.
Yeah, so that's where I got the key in Kigeri, right? The key means honey, and the geri means to arrive. So that's where I got the translation of Kigeri or Kigera. The honey has arrived.
And the
Well, in this
legs would be
article, sorry, go on. Sorry, Wildflower. Go ahead.
Yeah, when you said kigeri, because gere is legs. The
Oh,
legs that
okay.
you walk with. Yeah. Kigeri. Yeah. Chigere, bigere. So bigere is your two legs that move you from one place to another. and you said something has arrived. Yeah, that's really, really
Right,
interesting.
right,
Go
right.
on.
Okay, okay.
Exactly.
I can see the connection there. I can see the connection there. All right, let's move on to the next. So just stick around, Wildflower, and see if you can corroborate any of what we're saying here. Okay, right. I'm looking at. No, I need to go back to the exact page I was on. Blah blah blah. Sorry about this. Oh, it's actually really, really cool to have someone who is regularly in the chat, regularly supporting the channel, like Wildflower, actually to put a voice to that name. So this is really cool. Thanks, Wildflower, for being on standby for this. This is really cool. Right,
No worries.
Mibamwe, and again this individual, Mr. Addington St. David, has put this as Miriambre, and he's tied it to the appellation, the Egyptian appellation, beloved of Amun Ra, Meru Amre. What's going on there? Does that, first of all, what does Mibamwe actually mean? Does that ring a bell?
Go ahead, Wildflower.
I'm actually not getting this one at the moment. It might be because what we do have, one thing I do understand with like Luganda and Kinyarwanda, the languages are very, very similar.
Right.
Sometimes it could be just a change of the word, change of the spelling, but the sound will still be the same. So I'll be able
Right.
to understand. But with Mibambwe,
So
no,
there are
I
two
need
main
the
languages.
title.
There are two main languages, Kinyarwanda and Luganda, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
Okay. So
Luganda spoken in Uganda, Kenya, Rwanda, and obviously Rwanda.
okay, cool. So, but are they closely tied to one another?
Very much, very much.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
Yes. So based on my Kinyarwanda dictionary that I'm looking at right now, she's right. There's no Bambwe. I haven't seen a Bambwe like me Bambwe. So what I try to do when I can't find full words like that in the dictionary, what you have to do is try to break the word down. Okay, because it may be a portmanteau, it may be a combination of words to make the title. Okay, so in the Kinyarwanda language, kubamba means to stretch out. Okay, kubamba.
Yeah, that does mean
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, you're
And then
correct. We have
right,
something similar like that in Luganda as well.
right.
If you
So
open your legs really wide, we say kubamba, and it's not
right.
very polite way.
So
If you
that,
open your legs wide, so that's to stretch
Okay.
right.
out.
That means to stretch out. And then the bwe part of the word is connected, in my opinion, based on my understanding from Bantu languages, to bois or imbwa, which means dog in
Yeah,
Bantu languages.
that,
Imbwa, imbwe, different Bantu languages pronounce it differently, but this word means dog. So when you put those together, bambwe or mibambwe, it means the dog stretches out. And how you have to look at it now, symbolically speaking, is think of the picture of Anubis being seated and being stretched out while seated. The dog stretches out, right?
yeah, that.
So when you see depictions of Anubis as a full-blown dog, he is always sitting down, right?
Right. Of course.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah.
He's sitting down, or he's laid stretched out on his on the bottom side of his body, right? So that is a position of rest. So if I was going to make this connection to Kemet, it would be one, the dog is a totem. It's totemic. So this is describing probably the clan that this king is from, or the deity that he worships. Right? The dog, represented by the dog or the jackal, the bwe or the bois, imbois, and then the bamba connected to that is the dog, his totem is resting, the dog is stretched out. So mi bambwe is the dog that stretches out.
And on the screen right now, you've got that's the first thing that shows up when you type in, obviously we know what Anubis is, but the first thing that actually shows up, thanks to this AI overview thing that's on Google now, is the stretched out representation of Anubis sat down. I think I'm catching. I'm sorry to be so slow, Duarte Pro. I think I'm catching on now. I see what you're saying. That's this approach is what's wrong with his work here. And again, it's very, very well done, very well meaning, and he goes into lots of detail, but essentially his approach is completely wrong. And what you're saying is that, again, just to recap for people if you're just joining us, what you're saying, and by the way, please get the likes up. We've had, I think, points in this, we've had up to about 100 people watching at once, and we've only got 26 likes as far as I can see right now. So please get the likes up, family. Thank you very much. If you're enjoying this, there's no reason why I shouldn't have hit the like button by now. But again, what you're saying is that if these are the royal titles, and if these are the royal titles of Rwandan kings of past, and as he claims in this paper, they were cyclical, they were fixed titles that were given in order of in whatever order, but in certain orders to the different kings as they came along, then you're looking for what they mean, and then you're seeing if this can be found in as per the meaning. You're looking if this can be found, the equivalent can be found in the Egyptian what would you say, not even dialects. Of course it would exist in a dialect, but you're more looking for their meaning. So for example, we've gone to Mutara, we said was talking about coming from the land of something, and we've looked, and you actually found that not just you found that actual combination of what would you say, phonology in the Egyptian, and you found Mutara, and you found that the same, it almost meant the same thing, but you also found that it didn't just almost mean the same thing, but you found that phonetically it matched as well. You found Kigeri was a bit different. Kigeri, we found the meaning of it first, okay? And we then went to ancient Egypt, and what we found was that whilst the Neswit Biti, okay, doesn't translate in terms of phonology at all to Kigeri, the meaning being Lord of the bee, or he that brings sweetness, is carried over in this word Kigeri,
definitely
meaning relating to he that brings sweetness, he that brings honey. So you can lose, you can either lose the meaning, you can lose the phonetics, you can lose the sound of something, but when you're looking at the practices, the cultural practices of a people, if for example, we'll put it this way, these people are naming their kings based on what they value the most in their society, they've lost the exact phonology, they've lost the exact phonetic carryover, whatever, transliteration, we'll say transliteration, but they haven't lost the meaning. So that we still value, for example, the Rwandan peoples, they still valued, for whatever reason, in their cosmology, in their religion, they still valued, they still saw their king or their leader as the bringer of sweetness or whatever. So whatever happened in time to change the phonetics of whatever Neswit Biti, they still maintain the meaning. They still maintain the fact that our kings, as we see them, are the bringer of sweetness, the bringer of honey, the bringer of, and thus they kept this title, Kigeri, and which means, bringer of honey. But you go back to the Egyptian, and you find that they did the same thing. and but the name that they used was Nesutbiti, but it still meant the same thing. Does that? I've really butchered that, but am I making sense?
Yeah, you're making a lot of sense. And if anybody wants to know the actual way to say those glyphs that they are calling the Sutbiti, the actual way to say it is Sutangata.
Right.
Sutangata. Okay, that's the way to say it. But I'll cover that hopefully in a YouTube video one day so that you guys can see the breakdown. But Sutangata is the way to say what they are calling Nsutbiti. Okay,
And that
but the
actually
reason why, sorry,
and that actually sounds like an African. It sounds like an African tongue. It sounds like an African. When you
because it
say,
is
when you put it that way, it sounds perfectly African. I don't know what language, but it sounds like some kind of African language.
exactly Sutang, right, is the cognate word from where the word Sudan comes from. Sudan. That's its mother word. Okay.
Wow.
So the
Yep.
Sutang in Sutangata, that's where the word Sudan comes from. Okay. But back to the titles here. Yes, what you said about the meanings being, remaining, regardless of if the phonetics are still the same. The reason why the meanings remain is because if you don't study totemic traditions in Africa, and especially when they're practiced in Egypt, because you never hear about so-called Egyptologists talking about Egyptian totems, why they picked very specific animals to represent, specific principles. Okay, they notice the animals, but they don't know that they were totemic. Okay, and in African traditions, your totem denoted your tribe, your clan, the royal line that you're a part of. Right, it's always an animal or something in nature, right? Like the sea or a tree or something like that, right? So the same
It's
totems.
usually,
Go ahead,
Sorry, go
Wafa,
yeah,
ahead.
quickly.
with the totems, it's usually an animal or a plant. And
Okay,
Right.
you can tell by somebody's last name what totem
hmm
they belong to. So
that's
last
right.
names are linked to particular
Your
totems,
totem,
and this is something that is very widely practiced in the Great Lakes and Southern Africa. So you don't have to ask somebody what their totem is. If you know their last name, you would know which,
you would
and it's
know.
kind of linked back to lineage as well. So we use totems to know what lineage we belong to, what our genealogy is. So it's very, and also there is that spiritual aspect that animals, we have some sort of
Right.
ancestral connections to them as well. And also sometimes the way certain animals behave, we believe that we have some of those characteristics. So it just, yeah. So totems are really quite big in the
Right.
Great Lakes, and I kind of see the similarities with Kemet. It looks like they have a lot of totemic things going on that
Yeah. So
Egyptologists
yeah,
can't explain. I don't know how to
they
explain.
yeah they don't know how to explain it because they don't practice these traditions, but tribes like what you're from, tribes like what I'm descended from, the Akan of Ghana, tribes in South Africa, Somalia, we all have or had totems. And the reason why the meanings can remain the same, right, in terms of titles for kings in different languages, is because we brought those totems from Kemet to our modern day tribes, right? So that's why you have a title meaning, a king is associated with a bee, bringing goodness and sweetness, mean the same thing 3,000 years ago, and then you look into an African language, and there's a title that denotes the same meaning because the totem is the same, the bee, right?
Yeah. There's a question, and it's quite interesting. It says, "Wouldn't you need to understand?" Step in every time says, "Wouldn't you need to understand Coptic a little in order to understand the vowels and the words more similar to how the Kemetu or Kemetu used them, or no?" What do you
Yes,
have to say?
yes, and no. The reason why I say yes is because Coptic is just like any other African language. You're supposed to use Coptic in with other African languages to decode the Kemetic language. And the reason why I say with is because not every Coptic word came from the Kemetic language. Okay,
Right.
the Coptic language is a mixture of language. It mixes Latin, it mixes some Greek, it mixes, you know, other languages as well that are probably extinct by now. But Coptic is not a direct descendant of the Kemetic language. It's one of them, but it is not the direct descendant. So yes, Coptic is one of the languages that I do study when I'm decoding the language. I study Coptic, Amharic, right? Like I said, Bantu languages. I study Akan, Yoruba. You name the language, and it is in my Rolodex of languages to study. Dinka is another one. Okay, so Coptic is only one of them, and Coptic. Some of the Coptic letters are found in the Kemetic language. I just found one the other day, right, where the Coptic letter for the letter L is found in the Kemetic language. And in the Kemetic language, it looks pretty much exactly the same as it does in Coptic. So if you look up the Coptic symbol for L or La, look it up, and then I will show you the symbol for the Kemetic language that means the same thing. And that specific letter came from the Coptic language, or sorry, came from the Kemetic language in Coptic.
Brilliant. Absolutely
So
brilliant. Thank you for that.
Coptic is only one. Coptic is not the only one that you study. You have to study Coptic.
I think it's very convenient, because what they like to do is I think they overplay that Coptic element, because it's quite, for want of a better word, it's been corrupted by a lot of the sort of European, or what you would call the Semitic. I don't want to, what you'd call the European language, the classical European language. So I think because of that, they focus heavily on the Coptic. It's the one that's readily accessible to the Eurocentrist, the most readily accessible of the African languages, to the that's readily accessible, to the Eurocentrist mind. So they overplay that. But like you're saying, you're looking at a language that is thousands of years extinct. You need to piece it together with other African languages. If you don't do that, if you don't do that, you can't come to a holistic. I often wonder how much quicker could the Rosetta Stone have been deciphered, and could they have even come to a better understanding of hieroglyphics if they had just done that, if they had actually incorporated other African languages, but they knew nothing about them and they didn't value them. So, you know, we'll never know.
Well, I will say that they did do a good job, these white people, of documenting African languages in the 1800s, because, as I said, a lot of the dictionaries that I study are from the 1800s. Like, a lot of people don't even know that you can study the Wolof language that was spoken in 1825. Okay, there's a Wolof dictionary right now on my phone where it is the same and different in a lot of ways to Wolof that is spoken now. But you can study dictionaries as old as 1825. And when you study those dictionaries, that is where you find the ancient words you're looking for, in those very old dictionaries. Because as modernization set in, a lot of people stopped using those words.
Of course.
Okay, so if you study dictionaries from the 1800s, all these white people that were traveling Africa, they were documenting the languages that they came across. And the reason why they did this is both good reasons and bad reasons. The good reason that they were doing this was try to piece together where these tribes were in ancient history. Are they connected to biblical tribes? Are they connected to migration patterns from Eurasia? Are they connected to faraway places like China? Right? They found some of these connections in some of these African languages. The other bad part of why they wanted these languages and wanted to understand is, once they found those connections of Africa to ancient languages like Kemetic, like Latin, like Greek, right, Sanskrit, whatever, when white people found out these languages, they started to target those tribes and eliminate their customs.
Right, let me say something right here, right now. Guys, you're listening to Dua Tepra on. You can find him on Instagram. You mentioned a YouTube channel earlier. Can you share that with us?
Yeah, Duatepra. So Duatepra. Duatepra. You can find me on Instagram, Facebook, and on YouTube. I only have a couple videos on my YouTube channel right now, but I'm gonna start releasing content on there regularly soon.
Thank you very much for that. And on the other hand, the other voice you can hear is Wildflower, and she is just a friend of the channel. Absolutely love her contributions and just love her as a member of this family. She's absolutely just a great chapess. And she's from she's from the Ugandan Rwandan background, and she's heard what we're talking about tonight, and it's right up her street. So she's just joined us, and she's adding some much needed knowledge, much needed native knowledge to this discussion. I just want to shout out some super chats as well whilst we're doing this. And Shockwave Truth says, what does Shockwave Truth say now? Thank you so much, Shockwave Truth. $5 super chat. It says, correction, the totem was brought into Kemet from the cultural superhighway of the Nile River. Go up the Nile, south in Africa to discover. I agree 100% with that. Again, as you're reading Stuart Addington St. David, he has this kind of schizophrenia with that. To be fair to him, he not as bad as others, but you know, sometimes when we've got these allies, they suffer from because they have to play the game to an extent. They have to show signal to their established order that they, please guys, I'm still part of the team. Let me in. Don't shut me out. They still play the game. They play the game of kind of being ambiguous when they don't have to be. And in his work, he's been a bit ambiguous and ambivalent when he doesn't have to be, talking about kind of separating Egypt from the Nubians and the Kushites a bit too much and placing too much emphasis on the fact that they warred and they kind of conquered and reconquered each other. When actually in actual fact, if you study their history, it was more like when you study the history of France and England in the early Middle Ages, it's more like that. The two people were almost indistinguishable. You know, you had the kings of England calling themselves the kings of France and England, and they would cross over from France, place themselves on the throne in England. The English would cross over to France and place themselves on the French throne, and you kind of had their kings intermarrying. They were one and the same people. But if we had the way these people are trying to interpret African history, if you extrapolated that onto their history, you would almost think the French and the whites were completely different races, and because they fought each other and they claimed each other's thrones and they subjugated each other. I think we all get what I'm trying to get at there. And then Shockwave Truth adds another super chat. I just finished it. Sorry, brother Duatepra. He says, I'll just put that up on screen. He says Sudan then was called Sultan, later Satan. As the whites hated us, we were called their devil because they could not defeat us in battle. I don't know as much about that, but thank you for the super chat, and it's registered. All right, sorry, you were going to say something there, brother Duatepra.
No, I was just agreeing with what you were saying, but just a quick comment about what the brother there said about Satan. You have to be careful when you're ascribing the roots of certain words to white people, because even though Satan means something with an evil connotation in English, and in the languages that the English language got it from, even though it has an evil connotation, in certain African languages, Satan means in one language it means I think something like Lord Father, right? So Sa, Father, the Ta means my, and then the Na, I believe, means a lord. Yeah. So Satana in a language in my notes, Satana means my Lord Father. And then in another language, Satana means lightning or thunder. Okay. So when the Bible in the book of Revelations talks about he saw the dragon fall from heaven with lightning and thunder, and the white people call it Satan. Well, there's a language in Congo called the Lomongo language where Satana literally means lightning or thunder. Okay? So what they did is they took our words, and put an evil connotation on it. So Satan is not an evil word in African languages. It's an evil word to white people's languages.
Mm, mm, mm. I hear you. I hear you definitely. Okay, so let's move on quickly and let's look at the last two titles here. We have Yuhi. I don't know if Wildflower recognizes this. Mutation, he says, is Juhi, and he ties that to the pharaonic title Jehuti, meaning, as he says, the divine Thoth. Thoth or Thoth. I don't know how you'd say that properly, but that's the word Yuhi there in Luganda or Kinyarwanda. I don't know. Does that ring a bell at all? Wildflower.
No, it's not coming up. It's not really. Yeah. Yuhi.
Mm,
Hmm. The
okay.
divine.
Can we do the thing where we break it down? Maybe if we broke it down, do
Yuhi.
a tepra.
Yeah, I was looking up trying to find this word or at least a breakdown of it in
In fairness to you,
Kinyarwanda.
sorry to interrupt you, Jota, but in fairness to Wildflower, I've also got I'm in the background, I'm also typing this into a Google sort of into an online translation from Kenya Rwanda to English, and it's not giving me anything either. So that's not just that's no the fact that you're not coming up with anything is verified by the internet as well. So sorry, go ahead, Jota.
Yeah, and the same thing in the Kinyarwanda dictionary I'm looking at. There's no you he, there's no you by itself, and there's no he by itself. So I can't even break the word down, right? So while I'm looking in the dictionary, however, he tries to make this connection. The guy who wrote this book, he tries to make the connection to Totha, or to Thoth as people like to call him.
Yeah.
And Thoth is a deity that was connected with magic and writing. Okay, so he was connected to magic and writing, and the closest that this Yuhi would be in Kinyarwanda, according to this, in regards to writing, is that Yuguti in Kinyarwanda means letter. Okay, so I don't know if this was a mistranslation that he's doing of this title, but if he's trying to connect it to Totha, then the closest word that begins with a U is Yuguti in Kinyarwanda, and it means letter, which would connect to Totha being a god connected to writing. Okay,
Right.
but the word Yuhi or you by itself or a he by itself, it is not found in the Kinyarwanda language.
Okay. I'm going to as you're speaking, I'm doing my own sort of breaking down. But okay, cool. So that we don't recognize that at all. Well, he claims that this is yeah, that he claims that it's linked to the divine thought. We'll put a little bookmarker on that. We'll come back to that at some point. Shockwave True, thank you so much again. He says $10 super chat says correct. This is just backing up what you said about Satan. He says correct. Sutan is good, but it was reconstructed to fit their narrative.
That's right.
Last one we have here, Kirima. And in the Egyptian, he ties that to the title Irimat, one who has accomplished mahats or justice. I don't know what that would mean if that rings a bell to you, Wildflower, at all. Kirima.
That could probably be read as Chirima. So we
Chirima,
wouldn't
okay.
really say Kirima. Yeah, we wouldn't pronounce it. The words would not come out as Kirima. It would probably be Chirima. I can make a chi sound. And Chirima is something that you dig with. Chirima is something that is used to dig. And yeah, I really
Like would you say like some kind of what's the word? Some kind of a hatchet or a hoe or yeah.
yeah, exactly. Something like that. Chirima. If I was pointing at yeah. And the chi will probably be K-I. K-I. It will be K instead of the C, and it
Right.
will read Chirima. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. All right. So anything that you can add to that, Duatepra?
Yeah, so Urima in Kinyarwanda means garden or field. Okay, so as the young lady said, the word Chidima in her language means to dig, right? What do you do in a garden?
Yeah.
You dig and you
Yep.
plant, correct? Right. So Rima means to dig in the Kinyarwanda. The chi part is a little bit harder, but I have a couple here where Igiche, Igi is a prefix. So the che part means a piece or division, like a part. Okay.
Mm.
So Kerima would be a part of a garden or a part of a field. Okay. So that means, I guess, he has a portion of a part of a land, right? And
Yeah.
then further on in the dictionary here it says Guchira means to tell a story or a fable or a proverb. Guchira, right? So chira rima would mean the fable of the garden or the story of the garden. That's the closest I could find to what this title could possibly mean.
Right.
So
Right.
piece of a
I'm
garden,
looking
story of a garden,
or of a land.
or of a land, exactly.
I'm looking right now and I'm looking for right. I think I found it. It rings a bell. What you're saying seems to tally with something I was reading in this earlier. Uh duh, 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 duh. Okay, well, it doesn't actually. Oh, let's hang on a minute. Right. So you just said that it has to do with garden or land, and well, earlier on in this paper, Addington says the kings bearing the names. So right, let me go back slightly. He says the names in question, as established definitively during the reign of King Mutara, are as given below. Mutara, Chirima, Kigeri, Mibambwe, Yuhi. Then he goes on again. He says the names Mutara and Chirima each represent the start of an alternating cycle of regnal names, with the resultant patterns as indicated here below. Mutara, Kigeri, Mibambwe, Yuhi, Chirima, Kigeri, Mimambo Yuhi. In addition, as outlined above, the Biru of the time of Mutara the first associated with each name a particular function or regnal aspect, as well as certain key prescriptions. The kings bearing the names Mutara or Chirima were pastoral kings. You at the very beginning tied Mutara, Duatepra, in meaning to from the land. Okay, so
Right.
if I remember correctly, and he's here
Yes.
saying the kings bearing the names, literally, their names were tied to um, the land in the sense that they were pastoral kings. So
Right.
these were kings that were supposed to, okay, I'll just read on and let him speak for himself, whose tasks included carrying out ceremonies aimed at maintaining the prosperity of the animal component of the kingdom's wealth. But if they're also pastoral, and if that's relating to the land, pastoral is agricultural. I mean, anyone correct me if I'm wrong, but pastoral is agricultural as well. And we've just had, it's not a coincidence then that the kings bearing the names according to this tradition, this long, probably long forgotten by many Rwandans themselves, tradition. These kings, Mutara from the land, Chirima, Wildflower just said digging, something to do with digging or tilling the land, tilling the soil. And you've just confirmed that. And he goes on to confirm that, saying that in their cycles, the kings who bore these titles were pastoral kings. That's not coincidence. That's what you've just been saying.
Exactly.
We know for a fact as well that the pastoral element of the ancient Egyptian people was something they maintained. We were talking about totems and motifs earlier. So this is something that you see throughout the Egyptian, sort of, what's the word I'm looking for? Throughout how they positioned and how the symbology of their kings, throughout the names they gave their kings, and how they positioned them symbolically. And I did a video a week ago now about how the cross-cultural connection between the Egyptians and the Yorubas. And one of the things that would have made sense to a lot of Egyptians if they saw the Yoruba culture was the fact that the Yorubas have two items of power, and they are pastoral. Really, they are to do with sort of people who come from that kind of pastoral background, and they're the scepter, the hooked scepter, and a horse's tail in the other hand. And this is almost exactly the same thing as you see with the ancient Egyptian pharaohs. They would have a flail in one hand and the hooked scepter, the shepherd's scepter. And again, this goes back to the pastoral element of the pharaohs and the ancient Egyptians. And we find that again here in the title that the Rwandans gave their kings. You have the Mutara, again, speaking to the land, and the Chirima speaking to tilling of the land. Or so I'm willing to wager. I've not actually finished. Well, I did finish the paper, but I didn't. Like, I had to skim read some parts of it. But in some parts of this paper, he talks about how they actually believe that some of the kings were gods, and they were sacred. They had a sacred connection to making the soil sort of fruitful and fertile. Again, not a million miles away from what we see with the Egyptian pharaohs. I don't know if you want to add anything to that.
Sorry, what was that last point?
I said not a million miles away from what we see with the pharaohs, with
Right.
the symbols surrounding them and how they were supposed to be just tied to that whole motif of the cattle culture, basically.
Yes. Well, the cattle culture is very important if you have any type of tradition that is along the Nile, whether Bantu or Nilotic. The cow is a very important symbol for both our spirituality and our sustenance as a people, right? So the cow is a very important totem that is found all the way from Kemet, going right down to Central Africa and beyond, right? And I don't remember who. I think it was King's Monologue who did this again, where he actually one of his last videos, he connected the dance. I forget what the dance is called in Kenya, Rwanda, but their traditional dance.
Yeah, I've seen.
Literally mimics the horns of the cow, and I found that fascinating because it's actually one of my favorite dances in Africa, and I had no idea that when you put it side by side by the specific type of cow that he was comparing it to, it is an exact mimic of their horns, right?
Mm.
So just as you were saying earlier, if they had put any type of serious effort into actually studying African languages, other than just finding out who we were, when they tried to decode the Rosetta Stone, yeah, they could have found some of the stuff that we're looking for, but they have no idea because they think we're not the people that came from the region and that built the land.
I hear you. I hear you. Wildflower, is there anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, the names of the kings of Rwanda. Sometimes their names of their royals kind of overlap with our royals in Uganda, which is kind of like an odd thing that we have with them. It's like people living in Rwanda, they will have last names that belong to royal members of the Buganda kingdom. And they believe, a lot of Rwandan people believe that they had an input in creating the Buganda kingdom. So you have, like, we have one of our famous king, Kabaka Mutesa, and you go to Rwanda and they will have these kind of last names, which is we don't really name ourselves after these names that belong to kings, Baganda kings. But in Rwanda, you will find people that have these names, which shouldn't really be. So, and then again, Mutesa was named Mutesa because it means he's the negotiator. So the MU in his name, Mu, means one who negotiates. So Tesa is what you do when you are negotiating. So the fact that Kabaka is called Mutesa, he was a negotiator. So a lot of these names, sometimes I feel like they're also linked to what the rulers were good at doing.
Right.
Like they had a specific role in the kingdom, or they were good at something. So then you were named that.
Thank you so much for that. I think what's actually what's come out from this more is that there's so much that's buried under the confusion of the fact that foreigners are doing this. Again, I don't mean that in a hostile way, but people who, this is a study that actually belongs to Africans. It's like,
Absolutely.
and without Africans, I mean, you still have, the brainwashing is quite strong. You still have people who are assumed based on their name and what they say are blacks, whether they're Black Americans or Black Africans or Black whatever, Black Europeans. They come in the chat or in the comments later and they say, oh, there's no connection whatsoever. You just leave it. They say keep our histories in West Africa. But I mean, for whatever reason, the programming is strong with these folks. But what is clear, the more and more you look into this, is that like pretty much 3/4 of discovery is gone. If we say this isn't our history, this is nothing to do with us, 3/4 of this stuff is just completely gone out the door. You can't begin to make sense of Egyptian culture, ancient Egyptian history, if you artificially go with the Eurocentrist approach and you say this has nothing to do with Africa. Again, I go back to the earliest people. Whenever people study history, it's always the earliest representation, the furthest back you can go, that is closer to the truth. And the first people to start digging up these artifacts, to start seeing these things, they wrote back, they said, we can't believe it. My gosh, these were African people. These were Negroes. And what happened later was the slow realization. sorry, not the slow, but the very quick realization, oh, sugar, we messed up pretty big here. We've got to find a way now of divorcing Africans or black folk from this history. And they did that pretty quickly. So to the point where now we're having to convince other blacks that, look, this is actually relevant. You cannot make sense. And Sheikh Anta Diop put it the best way possible when he said, I can't remember the exact quote, but someone can help me out in the chat. He said, you know, you cannot begin to make sense of the history of Africa without, of Black Africa anyway, let's say Black Africa. You can't begin to make sense of our history of blacks without going back to Egypt. And he had it 100% right. Shockwave Truth, again, thank you for the super chat, $10. He says, you must find the information prior to reconstruction. They will allude to rebuilding, but actually the Europeans are reconstructing the facts to fit their narrative and whitewash us out. And he also says, thank you so much for your support tonight, Shockwave Truth. He says, correction, they know we are the people. They intentionally reconstructed the facts. The facts were brought back and then alerted to whitewash us. So that can't be downplayed. I agree 100% with that. That can't be downplayed. The element of the confusion that's been caused by having foreigners for the most part, deliberately suppress the Africanicity and just distort this history. But also, like, I don't think every single Egyptologist today is part of the conspiracy, but they, like, once you got the ball rolling on the confusion and the disinformation, they don't need to be deliberately part of it. They've just now, like, they're the descendants of that culture. You know, I don't know if that makes any sense, but, you know, I think it does anyway. Yes, Macy Graham says, Dr. Diop basically said that you can't understand our history without Kemet. That's 100% true. Okay, so I'm gonna round up, but I want the last word to be yours, Duatepra. I want you to kind of, is there anything else that we've missed in this discussion? I know you came thinking we were going to talk about Uganda, and that was my fault, but please, can you drop us, I asked you, I think if my memory serves me right, I asked you for 5 words in the Rwandan, but not you can't prepare for Uganda. Can I ask you to get that 5 words on top of anything else you want to say? 5 words in the Ugandan dialect that are just uncannily, like they're just uncanny, they're just wild in like how they link back to Egypt.
Well, I had to switch phones, so I'm back on my main phone.
Yeah, that's all right. I'll give you time. I'll give you time.
But it's okay. So my memory is still there. So in the language that Wallflower speaks, the Luganda language, and she's still there, right?
Yeah,
I'm
she's
still here.
Yes. So in her language, taka means land. Am I correct in that? Right. Yeah. So taka means land in the Luganda language. And obviously we discussed that before, that the word ta, the ta in that Luganda word, the ta there in Kemetic means the exact same thing. It means land, ground, soil, or it means region or area. Okay.
I didn't know that. Damn.
I'm sorry?
No, I didn't know that. The connection with Kemet.
Yeah. So that's a connection with Kemet right there. Taka means land. Ta means land in Kemetic. Another word is a word for to roam about or to wander. It's called I believe lalaga.
Yeah.
Lalaga. Okay. So that word in Luganda means to roam about, to walk around, to wander. Okay. The la in that word, in that Luganda word, that word means to go in the Kemetic language. La means to go. So if you ever see a hieroglyph that has 2 stick figure legs walking, okay, that is pronounced la. And in any word that means like motion or movement, you will most likely see that hieroglyph or that medu in that word, la. That word is found in Bantu languages, Dinka, and many other languages. La means to go. And in Luganda, that is where you get the term lalaga from, which means to roam about, to wander, so on and so forth. And then the other ones I forgot because I'm on my other phone.
Okay. I'll wait for you. I'll wait for you.
I don't know if I switch over to my notes. I'm afraid I'll probably lose the call. So should I try it?
Yeah, try it. That's all right. We'll still be here. So if you do that and then yeah, join us back on the other device. I'm happy to wait for that.
Okay.
Wildflower, whilst he does that, so like, how have you kept? Do you speak your language frequently, or is it something that you kind of?
Hello?
No, I speak it. I speak it.
Hello?
Oh yeah, he's back.
Hello.
He's back. Okay, cool.
Yes.
All right. So go on.
Yeah. So two more that I had written down. Another connection to the Kemetic language from Luganda is the word fua, and fua means what? Wallflower?
Is it to blow?
To blow. That's right. So fua means to blow. So fua means to blow in the Luganda language. In the Kemetic language, the word fu means wind or air.
Wow.
Okay, and it is denoted by the glyph that looks like the sail of a boat, like a wind sail of a boat. Okay, so whenever you see a wind sail hieroglyph, that hieroglyph is fu, and that is found in hundreds of African languages, meaning the exact same thing. It means something that blows. It means wind, air, stuff like that. Storm in some meanings. So fua, Luganda, fu in Kemetic.
In Yoruba, it's fe. That's my native language. That would be fe. That means to blow something. Wow.
Right. Yeah. Actually, in Yoruba, there's ifufu. I think that means wind as well.
Yes, it does.
Right. So yeah. So it's from Yoruba all the way to Bantu languages, all the way to Afro-Asiatic languages.
What's interesting to say that the wind is blowing me, I would say empewo emfua. It's like the wind is blowing me hard, like it's really cold. So that is actually wow, I never thought of that.
Yeah. So the fuwa in what you're translating from your language, that comes from the cognate from Kemetic fu, which means wind or air. Okay. And then the last one I have written down is naba, which means what in your language, Wallflower?
Bath, to bath.
That's right. Clean? So naba means to bathe. It means to rinse. Clean, it means to wash.
Yeah.
Right. So the ba in that word from Luganda, the ba in the Kemetic language. If you look it up, they have a vessel that looks like a bowl, and the Eurocentric translators have translated this glyph as neb. Okay, so if you look up the neb hieroglyph, they've translated it wrongly as neb, and it's of a bowl. That glyph is actually supposed to be pronounced ba. Okay, so the bowl is ba, and that bowl, right, was for washing or for rinsing something or to wash your hands before you performed a ritual, just like priests do in Africa today. You wash your hands, and actually in Hebrew they still do the same thing. They wash their hands before they go into the Holy of Holies. Okay, this is practiced all over Africa with diviners, healers, and witches. Okay, so
that is very true.
I've seen it Naba, the Naba in Luganda is tied to the basin or the bowl for washing. The Ba basin in the Kemetic language that is tied to Luganda, Naba. So those are the four that I found for this language.
I know some that I know that I've come across. That could be take that.
Yeah, go on, please.
You know how they they call the army the magi or the magi,
Yeah,
whatever it
Yeah.
this is, oh my goodness, this is exactly what
that
got
is.
this conversation going. I don't remember who put it in the chat of one of the lives we were doing months and months back. It might even have been you, Wildflower, but this is it. Please go ahead.
So the word is actually incorrect. I can see it was probably, Europeanized, if that's the word, to make it like make sense to them. But in Uganda, I think also in Rwanda, the army is called Maje. Maje is the army,
Mm.
and the Ma would probably mean many armies, because sometimes they will say, "I'm gonna send my J." So when I'm thinking, when they say Maje, were they talking about multiple different types of soldiers,
Yeah.
fighters coming
So a
together?
combined army.
Yes, like a combined army, because
Right.
sometimes they'll say, this president is going to send his J, because sometimes we'll just show in it, and I'm thinking a J might be just one particular, and my J, whenever we use MA, is to make things plural. So my at the beginning of it just indicates things being many. Ma is many. So when I see Magi, it's Maje. Maje is the army, and then that's what the people that were defending the pharaohs were called, the
Do you
Right.
know what's
Magi.
do you know what's funny right now? As you're saying this again, oh, I'm just annoyed. I'm annoyed, and I'm annoyed at myself, and I'm annoyed at us as a people. But I can't. That's not. I'm looking at the wrong place there, really. But as you're saying this, it's never occurred to me. It's never occurred to me. But again, like I said, I'm from the Yoruba extraction of Nigeria, and our word for fighting, um, to fight or to wage a war, is ja, ja, ja. Now,
Oh,
and our word for warrior is jagun, 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 jagun. Now, obviously, that loses the ma consonant sound.
mhm.
Um, that's prefixed there in your language, but again, that's I'm seeing this and I'm confirming it as you're speaking by an old Egyptian hieroglyphic dictionary, and I'm finding everything confirmed that we're talking about. But it never occurred to me. Ja, 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 ja. That's the fight. That's the wage war. It is.
And the soldiers are called Jasi, Jasi. So one soldier is Jasi, and then if you have many soldiers, will be Bajasi, because Ba makes it plural. So
Right.
that's Maje, Jasi,
Right.
Bajasi,
Yes.
many
This is
soldiers.
incredible.
Yeah.
Shout out to Carol Asperum. Thank you. So I hope I said your name properly there. Carol Asperum. $5 sticker there. Thank you so much for that. That's really, really appreciated. Thank you so much, guys. Yeah, just to everybody who's been part of this tonight and who's spread the love with some money our way as well. Listen, carry on, Wildflower. Please add a few more. Add a few more to this, if you've got them right now in your mind.
There's another one which is when something is bad. I think all Bantu people will agree. We use it's called B, like just two
Mm,
B's and an I. Yeah, and
mm-hmm,
that is used in Kemet as well. So the word B, which is bad, it could mean somebody who's not good looking, somebody who's ugly,
mm,
somebody who's a criminal, somebody who's a thief, anything that is negative, we just say mubi. So mubi will be one, and babi will be many people. And so this word mubi or bi is the exact word that's used in Kemet to mean the same thing. And this is what is common in all Bantu languages. Anything that's negative is just two B's and an I, B, negative.
yeah, I can confirm that myself. I can confirm that as a Yoruba man. Yeah, definitely. And you said ugly just now. Our word for that would be burewa. but again, it's initiated by that b sound, and then suffixed with rewa, burewa. Yeah.
And I have noticed that there is our languages have similarities with your languages, but it
Mm-hmm.
feels like there was some bits that got lost in the traveling
Of
that I'm
course,
starting
because
to see
we're
come
all
up.
coming from the same point. We're all coming from the
Yeah,
same point, and we're spreading out east and west,
yeah.
south across the continent.
You will be surprised to know that if you want to find more African connections to ancient languages, study Japanese. They have lots of connections to Bantu languages, Yoruba
You're
languages,
listen,
Akan,
what you're
Kemetic, you name
doing. You're I'm annoyed because you're spoiling things now. I'm got that lined up. Do you know what? We're gonna have you back, do a Tepra. We're gonna actually have to have you back because you've just said something that
it.
I've been thinking about. I've been working on whether I should go into this. Should I go into this? Should I go into this? Or will my own community even like just slap me down for it? But
No,
I for
I will have my notes ready,
longest
sir, because there are tons.
right. Okay, that's it then. That's it. That's another live book with you because we have to look at it. I've said for a lot, even before I got into this, there are too many words in the Japanese that have not just the same phonetic sound, but the
With the same
same
meaning.
meaning.
Exactly.
And I've for the longest wondered about it, and I've actually got more. I've looked into it more than I would like to admit, but I have looked into it and I found actually other people has found these links, but more than language links, I found things that to me suspect that indicate that actually there's been some suppressed history as to our trading from the coast of West Africa with East Asia.
That's
I
right.
don't I know that sounds wild, but I'm talking pre-European arrival in the continent of Africa. That will make for a mind-blowing live in the future at some point. And I've got to say, please, if you can indulge me, you'd have to come back for that one.
Absolutely. I have all my notes ready about the African and or Kemetic connections to China, Japan, and Australia / New Zealand.
Wow.
There are
Wow.
too many to ignore.
Wow. Thank you so much, bro. Listen, Macy Graham sends us super sticker of $2, $1.99 to be exact. Thank you so much for that, Macy. This has been a wonderful live. We started this thinking we're gonna go one direction, and it just exploded in a complete different direction, and it's added more knowledge. What I started this channel for was it's just taking on its own a life of its own, and it's led me in a different path than I even thought. And you know, that's good. I'm happy with that. I'm happy with it. It kind of reminds me of the scripture that says in Proverbs, you know, don't look at the soil and think, oh, when shall I plant? When should I plant? And just sow your seed, because the Bible says you don't know which shall take root. You don't know what you don't know what will happen till you start. So I'm so glad I started this. This is actually
That's right.
this is incredible. Thank you so much for joining us. Right, hang on, and I'll talk to you guys on the other end. Thank you guys, everyone who's joined us. Thank you, Shangamire, Carl Spears, Macy Graham, Wildflower. Today been absolutely brilliant.
Thank you.
Stepping every time. I see you all, guys. Thank you so much for joining us, and I hope this has been really informative for you all. I'll see you in another live very soon, probably next week. That one is completely is just different in itself, in its own right. But yeah, we're gonna be talking again very soon, family. All right, Costa Compton, I'm out.
Thank you. Bye.
All right, let me just end this.